Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Autism Mastermind podcast. I am Malinda, and I am here with my friend and co-host Vanessa.
Hello, welcome in, Masterminds.
Hello, Vanessa. So we have an episode coming up. So we spoke with Dawnmarie Gavin, and we are talking about spelling, but we wanted to do a bit of an introduction for those of you that do not know what the speller's method is. So we kind of wanted to explain it, share our stories. And there's also episode 35 of this podcast back in 2019 that you can reference. It's under a different name, but I will link it in the podcast notes that you can find it. We will also be talking about a couple of books, and we will also link those in the podcast notes where you can get them on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, any place that you can buy books. So
Yeah,
Vanessa,
and
what's that? I'm sorry.
those books are a great resource.
They are, because the Speller's Guidebook is what it's called. I can hold it up here.
Yes.
And it is practical advice for parents and students. Now, this is not a what is that called, Vanessa? A how-to. It's not a
Yeah, it's not a
how-to.
how-to. It's not a
Yeah,
replacement for the method. You really
yeah,
do have to learn how to do it, either in virtual sessions or in person.
yep,
And the way everyone learns and interacts with their speller is so different. So,
yeah.
but this is a great, and they call it a practical advice for parents and students, which it really is. It's a
Yeah.
guidebook. So think of it like a workbook
Right. So
almost.
it's kind of like we explain pardon me, we explain a lot of things in this episode, but we just kind of wanted to do a little intro and talk about our own experiences and actually define what this speller's method is, because I don't think that we got into that. And you know me, I'm one of those type of person who likes to know from point A to point B and what it looks like.
Yeah. So basically spelling, it's a form of communication and they call it the speller's method. So it's a think about it, you know how we talk about multimodal communication sometimes, but
Hmm.
this is a multidisciplinary approach taught to a practitioner who wants to really deepen their capacity to help someone who is a non-speaker or maybe a limited speaker or someone who maybe scripts, things like that. And it's a mentorship program that is used to provide individualized, so key is individualized support across a variety of sensory motor profiles of students who spell or type to communicate. And I think the sensory motor piece is huge too, and that's a lot of times gets missed because people
Hmm.
think, oh, they're just communicating, but a huge part of it is that whole sensory motor system, and that's what makes the speller's method a little bit different. So
Right. And how you start, so you can start with the guidebook for sure. And there's a website. Is it spellersmethod.com?
spellers.com, spellers.com.
Spellers.com.
Yeah.
Wow, how'd they get that? That must have been spendy.
Yeah, who knows? Or they got lucky, right? You never
Right.
know with those domain names,
You
do
never
you?
know. That's why we have autismmastermind.co, because that M cost $2,500.
Yeah.
So Vanessa and I started this process a few years back. And it's funny because we actually, Cormac and Paige are the OGs
Yeah,
of
they were one of the
Dawnmarie's
first
practice.
ones
Hmm.
to practice with Dawnmarie, some of the first ones. And yeah, it was way back 2017, 2018. He was such a little bitty. I was looking at videos
Yeah,
last week trying to show one of his current providers what, how he got started in spelling
sure.
and what it looked like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he was just like a little boy. So
Right.
now he's a man. Yeah, it's wild.
So when we started, Vanessa and I started at the same time. Of course, Dawn Marie first was using this method with her son.
Yeah.
So she became a practitioner, and you go through training, and they also offer trainings, and parents can totally do this with their child.
Yeah.
But you really do want to make sure that you have someone who knows the method to
Yeah.
teach you. And
Yeah.
it's not difficult, but it's not easy.
Yeah. So basically, I know people who are going to benefit from them, they're going to have autism, they're going to have something called apraxia, they could have Down syndrome, they could have disabilities or sensory and motor difficulties. That's pretty much who this method's targeting. And it's unique because it incorporates all of the things, right? So like we were saying, it incorporates using assistive tech, developmental optometry. They use occupational therapy.
Mhm.
And then they look at each student and what they need. And then the communication partner is trained not only on how to spell, but how to also meet the student's needs. Do they need more OT support? Do they
Mhm.
maybe need more vision support? What board's going to be best? Things like that. So,
Yeah. And it's really individualized,
mhm.
which
And
is great. I think that's great because when you go into different therapies when your child is younger, say for example, and nothing against any other therapy, you try whatever you want to try. Like ABA, they do the same things with each child or student, and you're like, well, can you change it up a little bit? Because my child can't see when you put things right in their face. Can we try moving it back? But it's like that's the thing is it's that you kind of customize it to your speller.
yeah, so if you're going to become you can be a parent, you can be a provider, you can be
Mhm.
whatever, but you basically have to have a desire to dive deeper into assistive tech, developmental optometry,
Right.
intentional motor. They call it polyvagal theory, to be able to meet that unique need of your student. And it teaches also what's nice is it starts out. Let's say you're brand new to it, you're going to start out, there's different sets of boards. And I don't think we
Yep.
touched on that in the interview, but you
No.
start out on a set of 3 boards. Now,
Right.
these boards, you might recognize them if you've done rapid prompting method, if you've done spelling to communicate or spellers. These are all similar boards. So you start out on the 3 boards. So the first board would have big letters from A to I. And then you have the second set of letters in the alphabet from J to R, and then obviously S to Z is the
Mhm.
third set. And when you're doing those, you have to stay within what's called known answers because they don't have the ability to be open and spell whatever they want with all 26
Right.
letters. So those are used more as like a learning, or in my son's situation, he needed those as a warm up to most lessons just to
Right.
get his body right.
And then you use the 20, I'm holding up these boards
Yeah.
that
So
you
if you're
can
if you're
see.
watching the
If
video,
you're
you'll be able
watching
to
the
see.
video on YouTube, you can see the boards. And then you have your 26 letter board. And this is after moving up on recall, like opens, and that's when this happens
Yeah,
when
and you
kids
have
are
to,
more open.
and
Because
you might need. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
oh no,
keep.
that's okay. It's the other one, it's right when you're using three different boards, you know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, you
Right?
have to
Because
have the.
you give them a choice of two things that it's either, say it starts with an F or a D, right? But then you can get more open with the 26 because it's, the world is their oyster. You can look at the 26 board and then like my daughter can say, "Oh, I want to spell out whatever, letter." And we kind of know where she's going, maybe, right? With certain questions. And the so when you do all this, they have you're like, how do they what do you read to them, right? And they're called lessons.
Yeah.
So they're called lessons. So it's kind of like I have one here that I can show you.
Sometimes it's a fiction, sometimes it's a
Yeah,
nonfiction. It's
yeah,
it's it's just basically presuming competence and teaching
right.
them something that's age appropriate. That would be a
Uh-huh.
topic. And sometimes you don't want to do a topic that they're too interested in, or
Yeah,
they might end up getting a little too excited, I guess.
right. So
Yeah.
like this book, I'm holding up this book, and
It's
this
called She
one,
Believed She Could, so she so
and so
she
she did.
did.
And it's lessons about inspiring women for students who spell to type or type to communicate. And they came up with this book, their center, Dawnmarie Center. And like, for example, there is a lesson on Jane Goodall. So we all know who Jane Goodall is. And what they do is you read the story and then you're spelling out words to them as you read. And say, for example, trailblazer. So you would say she's been a trailblazer in the scientific community. So then you would spell out Trailblazer. And when you get down and you read this story, the words are in there, and then you're telling them to spell certain words. So you read the paragraph, and the first step is spell science, spell theory, spell dis discourse, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
there's different stages that
Yes.
your
And they
child will be
break it all
spelling,
down. They
and they
break it
break
all
it down.
down in the
And
lesson.
this one is a little bit more complex. There's other I don't have it, but they have other lesson books that you can purchase to do at home. And there's like a littles. I think they even call it something for littles. And it's cute stories, like all about penguins or trains or that, like interests of, spellers that are younger. I mean,
More elementary or,
yeah, more elementary, but even Paige loves them. And I do too, because you can learn stuff that you never knew about a penguin.
yeah, you just have to be open
So
to
it's
learning,
fun.
right?
Yeah.
You could pretty much take any topic and break it
Yeah,
down into a
break it
spelling
down.
lesson once
Right.
you've learned the method, right?
Yep.
So, and there's
And then
also other places to purchase lessons
sure,
online as well.
that's right. And then you get into more complex things. You start asking, open-ended questions, and then eventually you get to uh what's it called, Vanessa?
What, where you're open or
Yeah, no, what do they call that when oh my gosh, I can't believe I just
you're
lost it. I
fluent
just lost the word. Um, like the recall and the open, so then you're open.
and you're fluent, like a fluent speller or
Yes, fluent.
yeah.
That's what I was getting at. So fluent speller, where you're able to ask them a question and then they can just answer.
Yeah, like and my son's at the point now where there's I can just kind of go like, "Hey, what do you think about this topic?" Or,
Right.
but that took a long, long,
It took
long
a
time
long
for us to get
time.
there. So
Yeah.
don't feel like discouraged if you've been doing this or if you're,
Mhm.
maybe you have a kid who has another big question, a lot of people get is like what is intentional movement, what's apraxia, what's dyspraxia.
Mhm.
Even if your kid's been going to occupational therapy or speech, you may have never heard of those terms, right?
Right.
And so basically, if you think about the sensory system and the five senses, or you can even think about it as six senses, everyone takes in information in different ways, right? So sometimes it's called dyspraxia, sometimes it's apraxia, right? But it's a breakdown of our ability to move intentionally. So let's say someone says something like, "Hey, go over there and grab that pink mug. I want to drink coffee out of that pink mug." Now, they'll hear that in their brain and go, "Oh,
Right.
okay. I'm supposed to go get the pink mug," but then their body gets stuck and they can't get over there to pick up the pink mug. Or let's say you tell them to go over and get your shoes and put them on, and in their mind they might see, "Oh, okay, I can do that," but there's this body brain disconnect.
Mhm.
But it can also affect speech. It can affect your fine motor, any kind of activity of daily living, social stuff. Like, let's say you're trying to hang out with a friend and they're wanting to play a card game with you, that might be incredibly difficult because of your apraxia.
Right.
So you have to be open to learning about that, and then understanding that when you're and some kids, they're more affected by their apraxia. So for some
Right.
kids it's going to take longer to get that body brain connection working,
Mhm.
and you might be met with some struggles, and you just have to power through it. And that's what makes this spellers method so great, is that you're not just teaching them how to spell, you're
Right.
incorporating the vision, like we said, you're incorporating the movement, all of it.
Right.
um,
And it could go fast, it could go slower, right? And
yeah.
it's you just have to be patient, and you'll see. I can tell you that, like, the first session that you have, you will see something. I can tell you that. I could definitely tell you that, even if it's sitting at a table for 30 seconds.
Yeah, we kind of have a funny story. So the first time we ever went in, and at this time, this is like before we even were working with Dawnmarie, and it was an RPM session with a
Uh-huh.
provider that had come to town. And so we brought our son in for brought Cormac in, and he's sitting in on the lesson, and I'm going, and he was still pretty small then, and the lesson was geared towards like a middle schooler.
Oh yeah.
And then when he got out of the lesson, the practitioner went, "Oh, sorry about that. That was meant for the next kid coming in, but your son did great." And they were talking all about government and different things,
Yeah.
and he was so engaged and he was so proud of himself, and we saw that, like, the first time, but he was spelling it was within that thing of the known words, right? But
Right.
still, like, how incredible to
Yeah.
have this kid who is being drilled at school, show me red, show me orange, show me the
Ugh.
number one or
Yeah.
two. And he's spelling all about, like, what
But it
Congress
was,
is. And
so now, like with other therapies, it's the same. It's like drills, right? It's the same stuff over and over again, and it's not meaningful to a lot of our kids. And when you sit down and you read them, like, the lesson is, it's a story. You're reading a story and it's interesting, right? And I know that I love learning new things, and I love reading, even if I'm not interested in Jane Goodall. I would love to read that and learn more about Jane Goodall, just so that I know. Why not? Why not learn about other people or things or places, that kind of thing. And that's the thing is, if people say like, oh, should I do this? Should I not do this? And we talk about this in the episode. Why not try it? Just why not? It's not expensive. In my mind, it's not that expensive. It's right up there with any other kind of therapy. And why not try it with your child and see how it goes? And imagine, like, with Paige. So Paige started, pardon me. I have no water next to me, Vanessa. The Paige started, and then now look at her. She's in a TV show,
yeah.
and we talk about that on the podcast. But she's come a long way. Now, does Paige have setbacks? Of course she does. She doesn't feel good one day. She pushes me away. She's not interested. And guess what? I have the same issues some days. Some days I don't want to talk to
Don't
any.
we all? Don't we
Yeah.
all? Yeah, yeah.
So
And
don't
is Paige still on the, like, in that progression? Is she still on the just the 26 letter board, or is she now moved on to that laminated board
She's
that
moved
comes
on to the
next?
laminated. So let me show you the
Mhm.
laminate. This is what they call a laminate, if I can say that correctly.
And
A
one of the
laminate.
accommodations it looks like Paige needed was to put clear Velcro
Yeah. So she,
on top of
like,
the letters for that input, that sensory feedback.
pardon me, at first, yeah, she needed like that tactile.
Yeah.
And it's funny with Paige because even on the
Oh,
26,
and then the numbers are on the back too. That's
oh
another
yeah, the
important
numbers
piece
are on the
is
back.
you have numbers on the back of the laminated boards, but you also, if you're just on and I shouldn't say just, because having 26 letters is incredible, but if
Yeah,
you're on still the stencil boards, there is one that does have numbers and some math
right.
symbols on it to allow you to be able to do the math.
Yeah. And so
So
Paige is very, geez Louise, very tactile. So every time she spells, she'll tap this little dot, and it's like this little
I'll to
fuzzy
say she's
little,
done. Yeah.
yeah, so that she's done. She'll tap that. So that's just something like for her. And for her, it's like we have to place the board a certain way because she does have a vision issue with an eye turn. And but anyway, hold on. Oh, I had to cough. I
Yeah.
should have
And
brought water, Vanessa. But
that's
anyway,
okay.
so Paige has definitely come a long way. She's open. So next for her is the keyboard. And she does a little bit of the keyboarding. So
One
that
of the tricks I learned with a keyboard too from another parent is, you can buy those stands for the back of a cell phone or an
yeah,
iPad to stand them up. I don't know what they're called, but you can put them on the back and be able to clear your
like a
your
cradle.
your
Yeah.
keyboard. It's not even like a cradle, it's like a stand, like I don't even know if they're like the
Yeah.
pop top things or whatever, but they have ones you can put your finger through, and then you can makes it easier to do the
Yeah.
keyboard like that. But yeah, I mean, the
Yeah, and that's the
progression.
progression too, is the laminate, then the held keyboard, and then the
Yes.
keyboard that's like in a cradle or on a stand, so to speak.
Yeah, and then they end up being able to type, and then it opens up their whole world for them. And but
Yeah.
you can also access curriculum via just the 26 letters. And
Mhm.
I think the most incredible thing about this method is it's allows for inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Because for so
Oh, for
long
sure.
our kids have been discriminated against because they can't sit still, or
Hmm.
and they get stuck doing these drills. But what I love, and it's on the speller's website, is it says, we believe that all non-speakers have a voice.
Yeah.
Non-speakers need us to help amplify their voices, not be their voices. And
Hmm.
revolution requires this to happen. We aren't the revolution. We are allies in their revolution. They can't do it without us, and we shouldn't do it without them. We are only allies to spellers when we amplify their voices. So it's huge about presuming competence.
Mhm.
I still hear a lot, and it could be true in your case, but I hear a lot of like, well, my kid couldn't do that. They're intellectually disabled. But how do you know unless you try, right?
Yep,
Maybe they're
exactly.
in there and they have so much more that they want to say, and then
Mhm.
you see a reduction in frustration and behavior because finally they're being heard. And
Right.
I also think it brings great hope to education with this next generation where we can include them from the time they're small,
Mhm.
accessing regular curriculum, giving teachers and paraprofessionals the supports they need to be able to make this happen. Because at some, we really do segregate a lot, and sometimes that works. But how beautiful would it be if we could include everyone and just offer the right supports in
Right.
your school that's in your neighborhood with the other kids instead of our kids being so isolated. So
Right. And that's what they're doing over there at the old spellers method. So next up is Dawnmarie, and we are talking to her on the podcast. And if we'll link everything up in the show notes for you, also on our social media, go ahead and pick up this guidebook that she's done. And not just her, but her partner in crime, Dana, also, who's
yeah,
excellent.
Dana's
Yeah,
because
she's so sweet.
Dawnmarie's location is out of the Speller Center, San Diego.
Yes,
And then you also have the Speller Center that's in Tampa. And
yes,
then you have practitioners, all
everywhere.
over.
Yeah, and then we talk about it, and we'll link it up on the podcast, but they do have a Facebook group
Mhm.
that you can belong to ask any sort of questions. Or if you type in an answer, I bet you it's our question in the group. I bet you it's been answered. So,
And one other important thing to mention as of right now is that there is a scholarship available for a limited amount of time through TACA, through the Autism Community in Action. If you're interested in getting started, there is a way to apply for a scholarship to help fund. So
oh, I
enjoy
did
the
not know that.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
enjoy the episode,
Yes.
and we hope you learn a lot, and we love any kind of feedback or input, and let us know if you'd like us to have the spellers practitioners back on again. We're more than happy. So you let us know how we can best support you and enjoy learning about spelling.